And welcome everybody to Enter the Bunker, launching you into thriving on this wonderful Friday morning or afternoon, depending on where you're watching from. My name is Jonathan Pye. I'm the co-host of Enter the Bunker and the owner of the 64,000 square foot nuclear bunker, which you've just entered. We're here today. You can see we've done a little bit of a change up from our set and from previous weeks, which is very exciting.
Yep.
And over here is...
I'm Kelly Cadell. Also co-host of the show. If you're watching on Twitch or Facebook, be sure to go to @EnterTheBunker on YouTube. That way you can chat live with us there. If you haven't, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and ring the bell so you get the notifications when we go live on Fridays, and possibly some more in the future. Yes.
So when you do go there, you want to go there for a purpose, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Purposefulness.
Purposefulness. So clearly when you're going to our social medias, you want to subscribe and like everything.
Yeah. And I will mention there is a new podcast coming out tonight, I think at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. So we have a new one coming out. Again, that's with Purposefulness as well. So this is just a little extra feature that we get to sit down and hang out and chat. Okay, so we do have a quote, because we always love throwing the quotes into everything.
Yes.
Much. Yeah.
So the quote of today is, you ready for this?
Yes.
It's never too late to be who you might have been. This was by George Elliot.
It's never too late to be who you might have been.
That's right. So when you hear that, what does that make you feel?
I feel like if I had like dreams and something happened that I didn't complete those dreams, that it's never too late to do that.
Yeah.
But it kind of has me confused, because it's never too late to be who you might have been.
Right.
I don't know. I'm gonna throw in a little whirl loop here. I also feel like just because of who I'm meant to be right now in the future might not be who I'm meant to be in the future in 5 years from now.
True. True.
Like, life changes.
Life changes.
So yeah, that's my perspective on that quote.
Okay. So when I think about it, it's never too late to be who you might have been.
Yeah.
I kind of think about, I guess, what's really ironic is that I can remember back to when I was a young man, I guess, in my teen years, like late teens, getting into the 20s. And I can remember, at that time, I was really set on becoming a university professor.
Were you?
Yes.
Nice.
And it was just like, but what propelled me into that was so funny, because I was actually, when I was younger, I was actually somewhat disgusted by the level of teaching that I saw going on.
Okay.
At the university level.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, so I guess it was like from seeing the lack of it compared to who me, just as a teenage kid, knew more than a lot of these university students. I was like, what's going on here? And I felt like it was a terrible injustice to the world and all this kind of stuff. So I was really eager to go on to university, go through the whole bachelor, master, doctor, and all this kind of stuff, and then go on to actually teach at the university level, because I needed to make sure that these students came up, actually knew
You want to make
knew their
sure
stuff
that,
and sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
But what's ironic is that I never got there.
No.
As I got older.
Did you pursue it at all?
I didn't.
No.
Not one bit.
No.
Because as I got older, first off, I was already economically challenged, so the possibility of paying for university was going to be a huge hurdle, and so I just started to right away have that stop me. But what happened was that in my last year of high school, and this is after I had been after I had traveled the world and did all these things. In my last year of high school, I got kind of bit by the bug, I guess. It's almost like I couldn't stop myself. I went on to actually become, I actually got into business from high school. Okay. Right? I started to get into computers, and that seemed to guide my path. And it was I took a real, I really got into it.
Did you think about it again, to be a professor?
No.
No.
No, only because I think at that time, I think I saw, I wasn't as aware of how the world works in terms of systems and the way the education system works.
Yeah.
You know, and you think that, you know, what happens when you're in high school? You're prepped to go to college or university, right? And that's all people tell you to do. Like that's your line sort of thing. Or you're going to go on to like, you know, go get a job and things like that. You're really never really told what these institutions are about or what it means and things like that. Just that if you want this, then you do that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, at a young age, that was always the talk, but I just never did there. Never got there. But if it's never too late to be who you are, who you might have been, honestly, I don't think I want to go there. It
can change.
Yeah, it changes. Yeah.
But I mean, if your goals you're set out and you want to be happy and you want certain things in life, then I guess that can relate to. It's never too late to be who you might have been. Because if you might have wanted to been just have a happy life. That's never too late to do that.
Here's what I think of when, like, if we want to give an example of this, where I think who this quote's talking to, I feel.
Yeah.
Okay, let's imagine for a second that I did go on to try to pursue that course, right? And I just went, so out of high school, I didn't get into business when I was in high school. Instead, I ended up going and get a job. Yeah. And I went there to try to save money. But then I ended up just like getting into the job, and then I just kept doing that and kept doing that and kept doing that and didn't do anything else because one day I'm going to go to university to be able to pursue this thing I want to be.
Yeah.
Right? How many times have you heard this kind of story?
I've done that.
Yeah. So imagine that I go on 5 years later, still haven't gone to university. Oh, you know, got to do all this to be able to do it. And then time goes by, and now I'm just like stuck in a job, and it's constantly what I'm doing. And I'm not even thinking about what I wanted to be in the past, right? So he's saying it's never too late, right? And it actually now that I say that, as I'm talking about like going to university or college later in life, my grandfather, he went to university when he was like 60 years, university, 60 years old.
Wow.
Like he was the oldest guy there.
Yeah, I bet.
But he had this, he had this dream of his to actually go to university and finish it. And he did it when he was like in his 60s.
Good for him.
Right? It was crazy. And it was hilarious because like you see, like all the students always like thought it was so weird that this grandpa was in their classes and things like that.
Yeah.
Because even back then, like we're talking like, you know, way back then when it was like much more traditional where it's all young people.
Yes.
That it was just so strange.
It would have been very strange.
Yeah, but he was like that. And so he ended up going back and he did. Like, so he did, you know, become who he wanted to be. Like,
yeah. You were talking about like getting stuck, and that's kind of like, I got a job when I think I was 15, and I had that job for 9 years. It was just at a fast food restaurant, and McDonald's actually, and I was making pretty good money for my age, like come right out, like my friends were always talking about these student loans. I never knew what I wanted to do. I had some dreams as a kid, like my first job I ever wanted to be was an ice cream scooper. That was when I was like probably like 3. And then after that it was a marine biologist, and then it was a lawyer, and then it was RCMP, and then it was corrections, and yeah, I'm not doing anything like any of those right now, but I'm happy now where I am but I did get stuck. That was my point in my story. So when I worked there, I was making good money. Like I didn't have like a student loan payment. I had just bought a brand new car, and yeah, anyways, I stopped. Ended up having kids, had to reevaluate. That was shift work and stuff. And then now I'm here. So really, I think it worked out for the best for me. Even though I did get stuck,
right?
I still changed it around to be more of what I pictured my life to be now. It's more now than what, like, do you know what I mean? It's my life now, what I pictured, versus if I was still stuck.
Right.
Because I was just going about my day.
Yeah.
Doing my thing.
So would you say that doing that in terms of like going about your day and the being stuck per se, was that you lacked purposefulness and that's what put you there?
I think I probably lacked a lot of the virtues because like I said, I was just going about my day. Wake up, go to work, hang out with your friends, get off work, hang out with your friends. Like, I don't know, it was just there was nothing.
It just became automatic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you just
yeah.
kept, it was almost like a hamster wheel.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I think I locked, not locked. I think that's why I didn't have a lot of the virtues. I didn't practice a lot of them because really it was just so continuously every day.
Right.
Anyways, what are some of the sorts of things that have attracted and fascinated you when you were a kid? For examples like smells, certain things that you see. Yeah.
Things that attracted me as a kid?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or like, does anything ever happen where you smell a certain smell and it brings you back to your childhood?
No, not really.
No?
I can't think of anything in particular that I would smell that brings me back to my childhood.
I'm just joking.
Yes. I think that, yeah, I mean, like craft dinner and hot dogs.
I had to say it because we were talking about it yesterday.
Yeah, we were just talking about it. But no, yeah, craft dinner and hot dogs, I suppose, you know, sort of thing. But there isn't a lot that really brings you back to my childhood I can think of specifically. Perhaps, I mean, like all I can think of when I think back is really just being outside and in the sun all the time and just hot days and riding my bike.
What I thought of something the other day. I was I was rinsing out a ketchup bottle. Actually, just yesterday, I was rinsing out a ketchup bottle, and I remembered that we used to use ketchup bottles as like squirt guns.
Right.
But instead of a squirt gun, we just filled a ketchup bottle and we'd squeeze it at each
Okay.
other. So anyways, I was rinsing out this ketchup bottle and part of me was like, I wonder if I should save this. Like my kids could use this as a squirt. And then I'm thinking, Kelly, like they have lots of squirt guns, but for some reason I did that as a kid and I thought, hey, why not? Like that's just what popped in my head. I wonder if I should save this.
Right.
For it to be a squirt bottle. We should say hi to a couple of people in the chat. So we got Stewie and Carlos and Bev. Hello, hello, Brandon, Matt, welcome, y'all. All right, we have to say hi to them.
Well, yeah.
I can't read the chat that well, so I'm just gonna turn my head like this.
Gonna defer to me and read them over. Okay.
I just am I can't read that far.
Yeah. Bev likes the smell of homemade bread.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, now that she says that, my mom made pita bread, and she makes it in a certain way. But the thing is that I've never really smelled it again. Like I've never been anywhere where I could smell that same smell. Yeah, the way she makes it. So it's just unique the way she does it.
Another thing that reminds me of smells is my grandmother died in, I think it was 2001. Anyways, the smell of cold cut meats reminds me of her funeral because I know it sounds so horrible, but there was we were at my grandfather's. They lived in and people bring food when somebody dies.
Yeah.
So they were bringing like casseroles, and you do not know how many processed meat trays we got. Like what are the meat trays? And so now the smell of that reminds me of her, I think it was the visitation day actually, not her funeral day, it was her visitation day. But now that's the smell of any sort of processed meats reminds me of the smell of my grandmother's visitation. That's a weird smell.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, that's a brutal memory right there.
It is. Kind of funny. Like what? It was a hard day. I couldn't forget it either way.
So I haven't had the opportunity to take my son like fishing or anything like that yet.
Yeah.
But I do know that if we got down to actually catching a fish and trying to gut it and cook it, if we ever do, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I would be reminded of my grandfather big time. Yeah. Because he was the one that showed me that. Yeah. Right. And I can remember like going through all that, and so I would probably be reminded of that. If I actually caught, if we went fishing and I caught a fish, I'd probably be thinking about my grandfather again. Yeah. As a kid.
Carlos said here, if you want to start working towards your dream or purpose, you'll find new paths that you didn't even know existed. That kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. Yeah, because one of those paths could be your true passion or dream.
Yeah, it's a journey of self-discovery, right? Yeah. And you're going through, as you're going through, it's a matter of like once you do have that purpose, and purposefulness really is like, it's not necessarily like, a lot of people attach purposefulness to what they're doing,
Right.
not how they're doing.
Right.
Right? There's a big difference because it's almost like people think the purpose is in the destination.
Yeah.
It's not the journey.
Yeah.
But really, it's the journey.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're driven by a purpose of, I'm going to live a life where I'm helping a lot of people.
Right.
Then every little thing you do is going to be driven by that purpose. So then you're going to go in a direction that just naturally is going to attract those kind of opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's where you start to find fulfillment in your purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And then that becomes the journey, and you don't know where the destination is going to lead you.
Right.
But that's also part of the excitement of it all, and also part of the fun of it all. So, yeah. But the thing is that if you don't have that real purposefulness like set in your heart, then what happens? You get stuck in the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And then you really don't go anywhere.
No.
Right? It's because they just keep going through the motions, and it just gets to where you're stuck, and it's almost like, I hate to say it, but it's almost like living dead.
Yeah.
It's like
Zombie.
you're not
Robot.
actually yeah, it's like you're not actually living.
Yeah.
You're alive, but you're not living.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for a lot, and the truth is a lot of people are in that space, right? And if somebody comes along and mentors them,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And helps them out, they can break out of that pattern, right? Step out of the wheel.
Yeah.
Then they have a possibility of like discovering. It's like, okay, what is my purposefulness here?
Yeah.
How am I going to, how do I want to live my life, right?
Yeah.
I often said, like, I discovered this years later, and I used to tell a lot of high school students this.
Yeah.
Because what's the one question that everybody gets asked when they're in high school?
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
I didn't even know what you were going to say. I just have been asked that so much.
Everybody.
And I never knew. I never had an answer.
Yeah, everybody says, what do you want to be when you grow up? And of course, what is it going to be? It's going to be some kind of career choice,
Yeah.
right? Are you going to be a lawyer? Are you going to be this? Are you going to be that? Right? Yeah. But nobody ever asks the question, what kind of life do you want to live?
Yeah.
Right? And if kids were asked that question, that would change the course of the course that they did, the purpose of what their future.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So if they said, what kind of life do you want to live? Because here's where I think that question alone is really almost tricky. It's almost like it tricks people.
Yeah.
Because when you ask them, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And people say something like, well, I want to be a lawyer. But is that really what they want to be? Because they have an idea of what a lawyer is, and what they actually think is, if I become a lawyer, then that's going to give me the life I want to live.
Yeah.
But nobody's asking the question about what kind of life you want to live. So if somebody said, what kind of life you want to live? And they said, well, I'd like to be able to help people. I'm really passionate about justice, and I really want to, have and I want to have a lot of time for my kids.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you can't be a lawyer then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you go on to be a lawyer, well, you're not going to have time for your kids. And forget justice. It's all about processing stuff, and it's not about justice. It's about engaging in the law.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not always justice.
No. Not always.
So I actually met a lot of lawyers in my lifetime that actually went on to quit being lawyers after discovering that themselves. They went through the whole thing.
Yeah.
They went to school for years. They got into debt. And then what happens is they get into that same situation where it's like so much debt, they got to keep doing what they're doing to pay it off, and they're stuck.
And they're stuck.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they're not in the life they wanted to live.
Yeah.
They grew up to like, what do we want to be?
Yeah.
But it didn't give them the life they wanted to live.
Yeah.
And so many people get into that situation. That's why so many people go to school and they learn lots, and then they go out into the marketplace, and maybe they get the job that they think goes with that education.
Yeah.
And then they get into the job and they're like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, this wasn't what I thought it would be.
Right.
Right.
So I kind of have a story with that. So I told you, one of the things was I wanted to be a corrections officer. So I didn't know where, I didn't think to Google anything. I don't think that wasn't the first thing you thought of when you asked a question back in the day, like it is now. But instead I went to the women's prison here in town.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and I just wanted to talk to somebody to see what they did. You know what I mean? Like their career path. I will never step foot back in there another day in my life. I was scared. They got angry with me and told me they don't have time for this, and got very And I was like, okay, thank you. Pretty sure I went out to my car, bawled my eyes out and said, I'm never being a corrections officer. And I never thought about that job again.
Yeah.
No way. Like
Yeah.
that was way too, I'm too emotional.
Yeah.
For that type of job, I think.
I 100% agree. I think you would just,
I'd be eaten alive.
You would just go home every night crying, and you would just be like, yeah, and then
whether I felt bad or for somebody, or whether somebody hurt my feelings, it'd be one of the other.
Yeah, and then you'd be spending half your paycheck on therapy for the rest of your life. You know, so yeah, it just wouldn't work. So, but there's another example, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Stewie says, I have a friend who studied to be an engineer and then became a stand-up comedian instead.
That happened to my friend.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, my friend Brent, right?
Yeah.
So he actually, well, he didn't study to become an engineer, but he's a businessman like me,
yeah.
And he's done lots of different things, and he has properties, and during and just before the pandemic,
yeah,
just before he was spending a lot of time thinking about where he wanted to go. So he was trying to rediscover his purpose,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And eventually he just finally got the courage to admit to himself what he always really wanted to do was become a stand-up comedian, of all things.
That's amazing.
And you know what?
I love stories like that.
Yeah, and I just didn't even, and then you know what's crazy is that it's like when he first came out with it, I was like, man, you've never said anything like this. And I was like, where's this coming from?
Right, yeah.
But it was just like, no, man, it's like, I really like the idea of being able to go and make people laugh, and I want to be able to do that. And,
yeah.
it's always something that I've always really admired, and and the whole thing of being able to get on stage and do that is something that terrifies a lot of people.
Yeah,
So for him, knowing him, he thinks that's exciting because
right.
he's just like, okay, I'm going to break through and do something that's going to terrify me, right?
Yeah, which is good to do that to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So he's living in the die zone where he's going to grow.
Yeah.
So what does he do? Hops on a plane, heads over to LA, and
just goes straight to LA.
And then starts going to all the comedy clubs, the classics, where all the legends came from and so forth, and spent time on the circuit. He met all kinds of people, and he discovered for himself what is actually involved, which was way more than what he expected, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of work that goes into it,
yeah.
right? But then he kept on pursuing it. He loved it, and then just on the edge of when the pandemic hit and things were about to shut down, he managed to get home the day before.
Oh,
right?
okay. So I thought that was going to go somewhere else.
but then of course the pandemic hits, everything gets shut down. He had he had tenants that were renting commercial properties from him, and what happens, everybody else, got shut down.
Yeah.
So then he took that as an opportunity to reinvent and actually rebuilt it into a comedy club. Right?
Really?
Yeah. And so then he says, and he started off with streaming like we've been doing during the pandemic because couldn't have anybody there, and everything else, right?
Yeah.
So he ended up doing the same thing, and right now I think he's still pursuing that. He's still working on the craft.
Yeah.
Yeah. At first he was really not funny. He was really bad, and he'll be the first to admit he was really bad, right?
But he got better.
Yeah, he kept on practicing. He got better. He started to get those materials, and he's getting better and better.
That's just a natural thing. I didn't know you could get better.
No, there's a whole technique to it. It's really it takes a lot of work.
Well, he found his purpose.
He
in
did.
Life.
Yeah.
Good. That's a very, very good, heartwarming story.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, today was fun. We got to share some childhood stories. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. It's at Enter the Bunker.
Yep.
And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like the video. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Might as well ring that bell while you're at it.
Ring the bell.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm looking at the wrong camera. Not used to these live shows. All right. So be sure to listen to our podcast tonight. That's being released tonight at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can watch it on any of your podcast platforms. We have them launched to them all. So yeah, do that, and you can listen to us while you drive. Where else could they listen?
While you drive,
while you're in the shower,
while you're making your breakfast.
You're making your breakfast, supper, lunch.
While you're brushing your teeth. Yeah. I'm naming all the places that I listen to stuff now.
On your drive, I said in the car. Anyways, all right, listen to that, and stay tuned for next week. We'll be talking about, we'll be talking about service.
Service.
Yay. Bye, guys.
Have a great day and a great weekend.
Yeah.
Full of purpose.